My first game was Mutants and Masterminds. I got to the table and prepared to play a Punisher-like gunslinger character. The group I was already joining had one of these, and he made it clear I would be cramping his style, so I was coerced into building a sniper instead, so it just went in that direction. I met up with the team and was introduced as their new team member. The following short roleplay section was that I wasn't welcome into their close-knit team dynamic. I played off that pretty well because I was secretly playing an ex-villain that they didn't recognize. We went on a secret mission to draw out a drug lord, and I was told to more or less stay away from their group under penalty of their super strength guy ripping me in two, so I provided cover from afar, using gadgets to roof climb and maintain watch over them. The team immediately arrived at a warehouse, convinced the guards that they were hired muscle, and went in to meet with the boss for a job opportunity. I was ordered to stay on the rooftops and provide cover for a team I couldn't see. Alright guys, I'm really excited for this mission. I'll just sit here. You guys all do your thing while I wait, I guess.
A few moments later.
Oh crap! I don't have any. Feel like I'm not contributing. I don't know. I guess it would be weird for me to drop in and just join them. They spent the rest of the 6-hour session in that warehouse talking with a drug kingpin and convincing him that our weird plant guy could grow the best kush he'd ever seen over the next 3 weeks. Then we'd catch him at a major drug sting operation, even though the hero team would be actively producing and selling drugs to him, which is entrapment at best, but I guess nobody wanted to hear that. Besides the overly convoluted plan to catch this drug lord, I do love it when groups just haze new players. I mean, why let new people into your group when you could instead exclude them? I mean, come on. The best way to welcome someone into a new TTRPG game. I had been wishing to start playing tabletop role-playing games for a while. I liked especially the subtle politics and machinations of Vampire the Masquerade, and a group of friends gifted me the V20 handbook so I could start being a dungeon master for it. Oh, how over my head I was. My first mistake was based in my eagerness to allow in as many people as I could to play a game I loved. So I started a game with 3 friends. Soon after that, there were 9. Man, that sounds familiar. The party of 9 players. Deathwatch is not designed for 9 Marines. Something, if I had a nickel, something weird happened twice. Anyway, I had 9 players now. More wanted to join, and I did not know how to say, I can't handle it. Nor did I want to, given that we just played throwing around couches while hanging out. Most players just lolled their way forward anyway. I was playing an introduction module called Alien Hunger, where the players started as freshly turned vampires, where no one was there to introduce them to their new undead life, though someone did approach them at the end of the 3rd night. It plays around with managing the hunger urges for blood, so I emphasized the piercing hunger in their throats, to which a pair of players decided to go for a burger. Let's be fair, it's what their characters would do. They didn't weaponize it, they didn't even say that, they just thought it was a logical conclusion. When they arrived, I narrate how they thirst not for any food or drink, but for people's blood, to which they calmly say, oh, well then, I'll just take a bite out of somebody. I expected them to resist the urge and do some self-control rolls, not for them to embrace the chaos. Rise, my spawn.
Oh, what is that noise?
You are a spawn of Baal, servant to I, your father.
What do you want from me?
I command you to slaughter the innocent without mercy or pity. Beware. Should you try to resist me, it will take great effort to...
No. I mean, honestly, sounds great to me.
Wait, what? Oh my god. Oh god.
My next mistake was following my honest reaction. After they had that buffet, my reaction was panicking as a storyteller and said, oh my god, guys, you're dead. When they asked why, I explained that there are powerful, ancient vampires out there, and they enforce some rules, the most important of them being the masquerade, not revealing vampires to mortals. And they committed an atrocious crime, and mortals are gonna search them out and kill them. They shrugged it off and accepted without any intention to play again, which, yeah, fair enough.
Why dost thou instant kill the mortal? Thou wast the one that commanded them to sow death and destruction. Does thou thinkest as a fool? I think you're calling me stupid, but I didn't think you would actually go through with it. Oh my god!
Show, don't tell is the lesson I take from this mistake, especially given that they weren't instantly dead, and now I realize that Hunt would have been a perfectly fun story to run. It may have been brief, but nonetheless, I stole the actual experience of consequence from my players. I just thought about those consequences of what happened and assumed not just how it would end, but that it had already happened. Man, and here I thought Rocks Fall Everyone Dies was just a running joke.
What the fuck?
As for my experience with the module itself, there wasn't really much of a point since the players would just go other routes. Perfectly reasonable routes, not in a murder hobo-y way. The players had agency, creativity, and all that. But I didn't know how to adapt or redirect the game. I started trying to be more sandboxy with my approach, which I did enjoy. I did not prepare enough by far. I thought I did, but yeah, I absolutely did not. A lot of games derailed and ended, and I'm ashamed to admit I used too many variations of Rocks Fall, Y'all Die, to the point where it became a joke. Hey, look, I predicted it. When the game went over to me and I couldn't adapt, even with 3 close friends and a group of amazing players with awesome backstories, nice role-playing, absolutely honoring interest and positivity, but I fumbled so hard I still feel sorry today that I couldn't deliver since they deserved so much more from me. If you have to take something from this, advice for everyone, especially new DMs, breathe, chill the F out, relax, bathe yourself in the game, let your... Phrasing, dude. Immerse yourself in the game. Is that what you mean? You're making DMs sound like Geralt of Rivia. My God. Let your creativity loose and take notes. And let your mind interiorize. Really? Stop it! Interiorize the system and lore. Trust and forgive yourself. Admit when you don't know when you've lost control, and communicate with your players the problems you're facing on how to save your game before doing something radical. You know, like rocks crumbling and falling. Don't be afraid of retconning. I thought of it as a capital sin. And with time, patience, and experience, more nuanced things will become obvious to you. Your game will grow more complex and better, and that won't make your game a previous joke. I reviewed, judgingly, all the things I had done badly every time I understood another fine detail of the lore or practical DMing. It's the path of improvement, and the laughs and fun times you have shared will not be erased or become cringy, but treasured memories of chaotic times where everything was ahead to discover and everything was possible, because you didn't know better, and that's okay. Look at you, doing your own analysis. You're taking my job. It just goes to show that this is the horror you're probably going to experience in your D&D game at some point, either playing with a new DM or being a new DM. DMs just have a lot of responsibility. It's a lot to deal with, and you're not going to be good at it. Hell, if you're an experienced Dungeon Master, you're probably not going to be good at it at some point. I still make so many mistakes as a DM, hence why I stopped doing actual play shows. It's tough, but like the writer said, it's a journey. And I love that this person focused on the fact that those previous mistakes aren't something to be cringed at, they were something to be learned from. I mean, that's a great mentality, not just for D&D, but just for life in general. You're not always going to be great at stuff, and hey, that's okay. As long as you try and get better, that's all that matters. About half a year ago, I was in this political espionage campaign with 3 other players, cleric, sorcerer, and fighter. I was playing a barbarian. The basic premise was that we were vigilantes working for a secret organization that helped fight against corruption in the city we were based in. First combat, we get our butts handed to us by random thieves. Fellas were armorless, wearing only underwear, dual-wielding daggers. We were level 3. Everybody but me and our sorcerer go down. City guards show up, last second to save us from immediate TPK. I guess the encounter tied into the plot? Wish we had a chance to establish ourselves and find some bearings before just getting put into the ground.
Okay, starting out on my first Dungeons and Dragons adventure. I mean, who knows what people will meet, the wonders we'll see, the creatures we'll face. I mean, really, I just can't wait for my party to get here. Take his money. Whoa! Here, come here.
A few sessions later, we're on a stealth job. Me and the fighter led by quickly incapacitating the guards non-lethally. We get about halfway in. The dungeon master has the guards walk in on us and suddenly alerts all the guards on the battle map. No opportunities to prevent this. It just suddenly happens. I feel bad, but I accept the DM probably just wants some combat and move on. Combat begins, and we get attacked by player characters. DM designed 4 player characters, not monster stat blocks, and gave them some goons for the... Okay, hold on. I hate when DMs do this, okay? You are wasting your time if you make a full player character sheet for an NPC. There's so much stuff on there that does not need to be there. If you want a good example of how to make a cool adventurer stat block, look at Flea Mortals. Yes, I'm shouting it out again for some great examples. But for the love of God, don't do this. You're just wasting your time. Oh, I hate this. One side corridor shootout ensues. The bad guys have a shadow sorcerer that gives us trouble the whole combat. Cleric backs this sorcerer into a windowless storage room, locks the door behind him, and casts silence. Cleric prepares to 1v1 the sorcerer. Instead, DM has sorcerer use Shadow Walk, teleporting out of the room, fleeing combat. The DM later admits that they just didn't want us to catch the Shadow Sorcerer for plot reasons. Shadow Sorcerer doesn't get that subclass feature until 14th level. And on top of that, they need to be able to see the location they're teleporting to. Why not just say they're something else? Shadow Sorcerer had a mask, and nobody had even identified them yet. Just make them a lower level goon we can interrogate for minor intel later. Meanwhile, across the map, me and the other melee marshal are pinned by gunmen. Our sorcerer hides, occasionally popping divine subclass heals on us while we run to cover to engage the gunmen with melee. We managed to beat 3 tanky gunner / melee enemies, and me and fighter were downed multiple times in the process. The party want to take a break from the critical path because it's kicking our butts, so perhaps we just need more experience. We go to the job board for side gigs. Alchemy mishap in the basement. Sounds like fun. We arrive at the side gig. Basement is full of gelatinous cubes. We're 4 level 3 adventurers going in. There's 20 cubes in the basement, all unadjusted stats. Dude, people give me crap for making my combats too hard. My God.
Alright, it's been a long dungeon. Tons of very balanced fights. But no matter what we need to do is stick together. We don't back down, we don't retreat. Whatever's beyond that door, we face it as a team. You wouldn't leave me, I'm not leaving you. Ready? Ready. Yeah.
None of these 20 cubes have adjusted stats. There is no solution except to fight them. We leave early because it's nearly a TPK. The party discusses with the Dungeon Master that combat is like really hard, and we don't feel very good, just barely surviving. DM switches over to normal enemy stat blocks. Campaign is fun for a while, challenging but fairly balanced. That doesn't last long though. Apparently the DM's takeaway from our talk was that we weren't interested in their story, completely missing the point about difficulty. They couldn't wrap their head around the fact that we just didn't like how hard the combat was, no matter how clearly we tried to explain it. Much later, the party's on a story quest involving my backstory. We're hunting a rare animal and manage to secure it, with me dealing the final blow. Some goons show up, including a gnome in a mech. They have some sinister plans for the magic meat of our quarry, and we get told to give it up or combat will ensue. It's tough because we didn't get a long rest between the big hunt combat we just finished. Nobody complains though. We also understand not handing it over would result in the combat. We knew the right thing to do was to stand up to the bad guys. We just barely win, but at least it was made clear the option we picked would be harder. Okay, so we're transporting this animal corpse back to the city. The Dungeon Master triggers a magic item that teleports our cart away with some of the magic meat and my barbarian's whole arm. The DM gave me a choice to consent to losing my arm because the teleportation could slice it off. I agreed, mostly because I was gonna use an out to roll a new character and retire this current one. By this point, our sorcerer was seething because he felt like every choice we made didn't actually matter. Like, sure, you can refuse the bad guy's offer, but it just means you pissed him off and he still gets what he wants through magic. Want to sneak through an encounter? I think you've had enough fun being sneaky. We're just gonna use my prepared combat encounter anyway. I retired my barbarian for a new character and so did cleric, and the campaign ended up fizzling out not long after. Ironic how the one choice that stuck was my character losing a limb. TLDR, level 3 party gets repeatedly beaten down by unbalanced combat. The Dungeon Master is obsessed with keeping their pre-written plot intact and gives us choices that don't actually matter or impact said plot. I've gone on record to say that linear campaigns are cool and okay, But if you give players choices, you can't do that cheating thing where you undo it immediately afterwards, because you do that even once, people are going to start noticing. If you give players a choice, let that choice matter. For example, I regularly allow my players to pick the next location they're going to go in my campaign. They're trying to go from point A to point B, simple east to west journey. They decide their route. It would be really lame if I let them decide their route and then sidetrack them to another location anyway. However, that's exactly what this Dungeon Master is doing. I'm not going to speak too much about the combat balance, since I talk about combat balance a lot, especially as a DM who loves a super gritty hard combat, but this DM is taking it way too far. Look, having a crunchy combat is really cool, but having an impossible combat, especially doing that too much, that's just gonna get straight up frustrating. I've enjoyed listening to your renditions of these horror stories and decided to offer up my recent experience of the eldritch horror that is the internet. Apologies ahead of time for this really long story. I've been playing with this group of friends since 2020, and honestly, it was the best D&D group I could ask for. The roleplay was great, and all the players took time to learn their characters and even commit to a solid schedule of playing every other week. We ended our 2.5-year campaign, and we're already ready to jump into the next one. I've been wanting to run Curse of Strahd for years and volunteered to go next in our group. However, one of the players, DMPC Cleric, asked if they could run Lost Mines and Phandelver so we could start from level 1 and allow our new party to bond before going into Barovia. I was totally okay with this as the DMPC Cleric. Okay, hold on, sorry. I'm assuming this person becomes a DMPC in the future because the way the sentence is framed, it sounds like an NPC becoming a real boy and wanting to run D&D, which is, your fictional world contains me no longer concerning. Anyway, DMPC Cleric had never run a game for our group, and I had run a few one-shots in the past. I wanted to give them an opportunity to be a dungeon master and run us through a few levels so I can avoid running the meat grinder that is Death House. So we create our characters and start the campaign. The most important characters to note in the story are the DM/DMPC Cleric, the Sorcerer, and myself as the Ranger. Everything is going great, and we're feeling out the party dynamic and learning our characters. Because this campaign was going to lead into Curse of Strahd, the player character the DM was going to play in Curse of Strahd was brought into the group as a DMPC. Okay, so not an NPC becoming a real boy. Yes, hindsight is 2020 in this, and I feel like I should have spoken up about how the DM playing their player character at the same time could be a problem, but I trusted the DM enough not to follow the tropes of every other DMPC. The first incident, our group had run across a group of lycanthropes who had formed a commune of sorts to protect themselves and others from their affliction. We helped them retrieve a member of their group, and during the celebration afterwards, my ranger revealed a bit about her home and family. The sorcerer jokingly referred to it as kind of culty, and we laughed it off. A few other suggestions were thrown around to the sorcerer, who pretty much labeled everything as kinda culty, including the DMPC Cleric's religion. The DM notes that the DMPC Cleric says nothing and stares at the sorcerer. The group notices the sudden shift, and DMPC Cleric goes off to sit by themselves. Sorcerer notices this and went over to the DMPC Cleric to try and solve the situation. DMPC Cleric pretty much stonewalled the sorcerer and refused to discuss the issue further with them. For me, I labeled this as the first sign of PvP, which I've had very bad experience with in the past and would have preferred to keep it out of the game altogether. So after the game, I asked Sorcerer to reach out to the DM/DMPC Cleric to see if we could set some ground rules and communication about the future of the PvP game that could be laid out. Sorcerer agreed and sent a text to the DM revealing a bit of their backstory and asking how they might... Wait, back up. Did the DM not have the Sorcerer's backstory? I guess it makes sense. They're going to become a player in the future, but just an interesting dynamic to me. Hey guys, in the comments, holler out if you have a dungeon master who's not going to be a dungeon master in the future. Do you tell them your backstory or do you keep it secret? The sorcerer wanted to collaborate together, emphasizing they would like positive resolution from the character conflict. The DM vaguely agreed, but offered no additional information how their characters could resolve the conflict. The sorcerer's vision for resolving the conflict. The DM's vision for resolving the conflict. Just a theory. The second incident, my ranger's backstory was coming into play a little more, and our group had confronted the big bad evil guy of the campaign. We found an NPC that we had been searching for, being tortured for information about a secret cave full of hidden magic. The group confronts the big bad evil guy, and as we're about to escape, my ranger yells out that they will kill the NPC if the big bad evil guy runs away. I checked above table with the party to make sure they were okay with my character making this decision, and they said it made sense for my character to do that. In game, the other players attempted to talk the ranger down, but they were determined that no one else should suffer the consequences of essentially a nuclear warhead stash being known and accessible to the big bad evil guy. Classic trolley problem in the ranger's eyes. The only other player character that agreed with the ranger's perspective was the sorcerer. The NPC in the end survived, and we left the area. The ranger broke down, recognizing the conflict within them, and the DMPC cleric immediately went to comfort them. Why are those two words so similar? The DMPC cleric immediately went to comfort them, but made sure to note that they glare angrily at the sorcerer. Sorcerer and I were confused by this reaction as we both made the conscious decision to attack the NPC together. The NPC cleric made a remark to another player character that they believe the sorcerer was corrupting my ranger, which again made no sense to me as I was the one to propose the idea to attack the NPC, and it was their own choice to follow me in doing so. The third incident, our group was leaving back to town to enjoy some downtime at a harvest festival. The sorcerer volunteered to go to the potion shop that DMPC cleric had worked at in the past, and my ranger encouraged the DMPC cleric to go with the sorcerer, seeing this as an opportunity for their characters to talk and maybe hash out the beef. Only this did not go well. Sorcerer attempted to ask DMPC cleric how they're feeling, attempting to resolve the player versus player that was becoming more and more tense and uncomfortable to me. Again, I really should have spoken up at this point to let DM know that this was making me uncomfortable. The DMPC cleric stonewalled the sorcerer again, saying they just need to grow up, and practically ran away from the sorcerer to avoid the conversation any further. So yet again, the PvP went unsolved. The sorcerer out of game approached the dungeon master again and stated the desire to end the beef in a positive way before starting Curse of Strahd, which again, the DM vaguely agreed to, but offered no solution as to what the DMPC cleric needed the sorcerer to do in-game to resolve the situation.
Hey man, I think this beef, I think it's gone on long enough, okay? I think one of us has got to bury the hatchet, so I'm gonna do it. What do you need from me? You know, anything. There is but one thing you can do to earn my favor. What, you want a Christmas present or something? A gift? Nothing so petty. I just want you to feel extreme pain. I want you to flay your flesh from your bones. I want to watch you screaming.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
Agony. I want your family to... Of course, awful good servant of the gods. Totally in character.
Okay, final instant. At this point in the game, the DMPC cleric pretty much avoided all contact with the sorcerer and heavily favored interactions with my ranger, which was very awkward for me. We had run in with the BBEG who escaped again, and the group had hit a pretty low point. The sorcerer mentioned to another player character their suspicions of an NPC, which happened to be an NPC close with DMPC cleric, thinking that they may not be as trustworthy as we thought. We had been manipulated by a lot of NPCs at this point, and felt like we could only trust each other. The DMPC cleric, instead of confronting sorcerer, stared furiously at the sorcerer and ran away to my ranger, telling them that sorcerer wanted to kill this NPC. My ranger questioned that line of thinking, and I knew that was not what sorcerer said at all, but our cleric stormed away from my ranger too. The session ended, and the group was noticeably dejected and frustrated. We met up together to try and hash things out, and Sorcerer asked the DM why every attempt they made to come up with a resolution to this PvP was constantly stonewalled. The DM said that they had purposefully separated Cleric from the party multiple times so the Sorcerer could apologize to them about the cult comment from the beginning of the story. Sorcerer pointed out that they had attempted multiple times to try and resolve this in and out of the game, but it felt like they were only told to grow up or were blatantly ignored. There seemed to be a great amount of character bleed that was happening, and after more fruitless discussions and arguments, the friendship and the game eventually blew up, and now I don't have a D&D group or friends. God This whole situation just sucks, and the fact that OP lost a bunch of friends because of it just is absolutely ridiculous. It's funny because I'm rewatching a series called The Wire, a series filled with thieves and murderers and drug runners, and in that show, two enemies agree to a temporary end to their beef for mutual benefit. I don't know, it's just funny that these fictional drug runners and killers with beef that has actual murder involved seem more likely to collaborate than this friggin' dungeon master. Sorry, or friends to play with anymore, because the DM could not properly communicate with the rest of the party. I guess I have to wait a few more years before I can run Curse of Strahd. TLDR, the DMPC chose to engage in player versus player with another player character and refused all attempts to resolve the conflict, resulting in the loss of a multi-year-long friendship and our Dungeons & Dragons group. It just goes to show, player versus player is not just punching each other in the face. This is a far more common and, honestly, great form of PvP. Player conflict can be interesting. However, player conflict that's one-sided is not interesting. My favorite example of character conflict comes from Critical Role Campaign 2. Ford and Not are constantly prodding at each other, mocking each other, etc. Their relationship began as antagonistic and moved into being more, frenemy-like. And you know what? It works great because both players want to do this, and it results in some of the best roleplay interactions at the entire table. But number one, those players are really dang good at what they do. And number two, like I said, it was consensual. Here, Sorcerer does not want to do this. Sorcerer wants to end the beef. Cleric does not, and the lack of communication on what Sorcerer needs to do to end the beef is not great at all. It's even worse because remember, Caleb and Not, they're player characters in Critical Role. This dude is the Dungeon Master. I think it's okay for NPCs and player characters to have beef, but I don't know, here the dynamic is kind of an ick. Alright, and that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Q&Play series, where we answer your questions in a rambly, unscripted format while playing some video games. And while you're there in the cards, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content right as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment 20 gelatinous cubes to let me know at the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories and you want to be featured in one of these videos, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description. Send your stories our way, and you may get that chance. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.
Totally normal Minecraft behavior, spawning in tons of slimes because I couldn't find a bunch of slime noises all at once anywhere else. This is stupid.